Good evening, everyone. My name's Stevan Porter. I'm one of the candidates for Herndon Town Council this year. And after having done a couple of Q&As for council candidates, I was asked if I would do something for our two mayor candidates. So I'm pleased that Mr. Taylor and Ms. Olem are able to join us this evening. I do believe that it's really critical to the future of our town that we have informed and engaged citizens. And part of that is having dialogues like this. So thank you very much for attending. For legal purposes, this event is being paid for by the Stevan Porter for Herndon Council Campaign Committee. And with that, quickly let people know that you can ask questions throughout the event by using the Q&A panel at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If we do not get to your question, the questions will be shared with both Mr. Taylor and Ms. Olem, as with your contact information so that they can reach out and answer any questions that we did not get to. The format for this evening will be each candidate will be given a 3-minute opening statement. We'll move into questions. For the questions, because we only have 2 candidates, each candidate will get 2 minutes to respond and a 1-minute follow-up on each question. And we'll alternate which candidate gets to go first. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and have a 2-minute closing statement from every candidate. This event will be recorded, it is being recorded, and will be shared on YouTube, Facebook, as well as other platforms that the candidates may wish to use. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Greg Wilson, who has kindly volunteered his time to help moderate these events, and I'm going to disappear. So thank you again for coming.
Good, we're getting ready to kick off here, and welcome everyone. Again, the Q&A platform is open. We have a couple questions in the hopper already, but we're hoping to ask questions from you, so please don't be shy and use the Q&A button and I'll queue through them. But we're gonna start with opening comments first. And Sheila, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was plugged in. So good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Olem. I'm currently your vice mayor. I moved to the town in 1990, and I was under the impression that we would have Metro by the year 2000. So I've been waiting a long time and can't wait to get it. I've also been to numerous charrettes over the years and town planning events about a downtown. And many have come and gone. So I'm very excited about the Silver Line making it into the town of Herndon over at the Metro stop, as well as finally doing some development in the downtown. Moved to Herndon. I knew it was a town and I knew we had our own form of government, which is part of the reason my late husband and I thought it was pretty cool to move to Herndon. When we first moved to Virginia, we lived in Springfield and we were just part of the big county. So I really enjoyed living here and being part of a community, knowing that we had our own elected officials, we have our own land use, and I was also drawn to the fact that we had a historic downtown. It may not be very big. I go to other historic communities around this area between here and West Virginia, and ours is very small, but it's very cool, and I really enjoy living here with all the variety of housing that we have in Herndon. Another thing that attracted me to Herndon was the diversity, not only with ethnicities, but people were from all over the world. When we moved here, we lived in Four Seasons, and the folks in Four Seasons, it was a new development, so they had the last names everywhere. And we looked at each other and said, this will be like raising our children in the United Nations. I had grown up in Alabama where everybody was black and white. That was it. My late husband grew up in the Boston area, so he was, you know, around a little more diversity than I was, but you didn't have much in Alabama. So I've really enjoyed being here. My sons have friends from all over the place, and it really does make a difference when people are just your neighbors and you're interacting with them. But I really love the town. I've been involved for numerous years. I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 7 years, and I have now been on the town council for 10. So I hope that I can win your vote for this election, and I look forward to serving you for another term as mayor this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Hi, Roland. How are you?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thank you so much for taking part in this. I appreciate it.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So, Greg, Steven, again, appreciate you doing it and appreciate the people taking the time to look at this. My name's Roland Taylor. My wife, Kathy, and I live over in Hunters Creek by Runnymede Park and Herndon Elementary School. We've raised 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. So ever since we moved into Herndon, like I said, we came here because we really enjoyed the community spirit. When I first came here, I was like in Broadlands and Ashburn. There was just no community, no anything. And so there weren't a lot of activities for kids. So when we found Herndon, we just thought this was great. Small town atmosphere, the civic organizations that were here were very mature. I learned about the legacies of the older towns like Vienna Falls Church and Herndon. Like I said, had small town elections. I really enjoyed, the atmosphere. So we moved over. The children got participating in a lot of the Optimist Club's programs. I coached baseball for my sons. For many years. They even coached later, enjoyed it and did their community part and participated in it. For our daughters, I coached girls field hockey. Our oldest daughter was drum major in Herndon band. They were all 3 years apart. So every time I had a senior, I had a freshman. When I had a senior, I had a freshman. And when I had a senior, I had a freshman. And so I've been at many, many schools. So many people, in our tenure of our kids going through, many, families, that had 3 or 4 kids like us, they know that we've participated from elementary schools. Kathy did back to school packets at elementary. We've done all night grad, every year that we were asked to volunteer. So we've dealt a lot of blackjack to the kids over there on senior night. We've been very active in the community and giving back because we've enjoyed what we've received from it. From that, I was Herndon Optimist Club. I was vice president, president-elect, so involved with that. Here in Hunters Creek, about 283 homes in 1970 model type homes. I was HOA board, voted by my neighbors, vice president, president. So for many years, I've worked with the town in reference to planning, zoning issues, for neighborhoods here in Herndon. So again, we've been very active in participating, at the family level. The youngest one graduated at 19. So I'm excited to step up and offer at a different level of my service to the town. I'm a retired police officer from out of state, and then I've moved up here supporting United States Department programs around the world. So I was UN Deputy Police Commissioner in East Timor in 1999-2000. I commanded 1,500 police from 52 countries. And from there, I went to Kosovo. And in 2017, I finished rule of law in Afghanistan. Now I support U.S. Army at Fort Belvoir for IT infrastructure around the world. So that's a little bit about my background, just offering my service to the community and appreciate people looking at me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now we'll get to the questions, and we're going to keep switching the order. So Roland will get to go first on answering this. 2 minutes for your first response, and then 1 minute follow-up each afterwards. Stevan Porter was kind enough to give us the first question, which we'll start with, and then we can get to some of the questions that are on the screen here. So Stevan wrote, what do you view as being the unique responsibilities of being mayor, and what makes you the right fit? 2 minutes to start to Roland.
Thank you. So again, the kind of the way the town's structured in, the mayor, council, town manager type format, our role is to be, financially responsible for the citizens, represent the citizens, and I believe set the direction for the town. And so that takes long-term planning, short-term planning. Those are crucial elements for it. And, I think when COVID hit, then we may have found some weaknesses in long-term planning or financial planning that I feel like that my business experience and 20 years as a public servant for a local government, brings me a lot of expertise and in my years of business experience as well. So I think that we've got to sit down and do more long-term planning. And then again, we're going to have to restructure the model after COVID because we're not sure what the office space will look like after that, how much will teleworking impact that. The less office space we have, the less retails will be connected to that, our restaurants and others. So we're really going to have to rethink the model of what we think will look like in the economy after that. So those are the things that I think that I would lead in that effort, working with the council and the town staff, to let them know what the people of Herndon desire, not what they may be looking or copying from Fairfax County. So we've got to set the citizens' directives. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I see the role as council and mayor is we're there to be there to make sure that the excellent staff that we have are listening to the community, are listening to our constituents here in the community. I feel just the number of years that I have been active in the town, and especially the 10 years I've been on council, we have an excellent staff. When we went through the sequestration back in not long after I got elected to office, that was pretty scary because a lot of the companies that were working in Herndon closed down. But we powered through it and got through the course. And that's what I've seen with the COVID. At the moment, when we got hit with the COVID, we were so fortunate that our staff had been watching the pulse. I know that I serve on the committee for Dulles for the town council, and the airports were going out around the country buying PPEs, getting ready for this. Our staff here in Herndon were out there buying PPEs, personal protection equipment, so that our staff was ready. And when everything hit in March and we needed to suit everyone up, we had supplies, whereas a lot of organizations that hadn't done that, they weren't ready for it. So one of the things that I see as the responsibility is to work with our council, try and stay on track and look at the things that our community is interested in pushing forward. However, we have to look at a price tag on everything. So we want to look at and keep our citizens happy, but we also have to make sure we can pay the bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland, you have 1 minute to respond or rebut or amend.
Thank you. Yeah. So for me, is like I said, that's more short term, and like I said, I just don't think strategically. Again, we've planned and known the metro was going to be coming for, like Sheila said, for many decades, but in the last decade at least, felt confident that it was going to happen, and I'm just not sure that line item budgets for that, had us with reserves to tackle the things that we should have known that were coming, in regards to that. So therefore, had we planned more strategically, financially, then we wouldn't have to rely on bonds that we may do now for infrastructure for that construction to come in. So I just think that there needs to be a longer term financial plan for it. And I think that COVID has kind of revealed that may not have been happening, in a way. And again, we switched managers and some other things, but I think that strategically we just need to provide guidance to them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sheila, 1 minute follow-up.
1 minute follow-up. Thank you. Well, I will say that thank goodness for our staff that is very strategic. We are now, please go up and down Van Buren. I keep bringing this up on our public hearings and work sessions, hoping the community will hear. And if you go up and down and see how they're moving those huge utility poles, this is millions of dollars worth. We've been planning this for a very long time. And I might not have known it had I not been on the committee, the Dulles Toll Road Task Force back in 2000. But even back in 2000, when I served on that committee, our mayor back in the 90s, Tom Rust, they already had a plan for what they wanted where the metro's going. Now, they didn't have permission to do anything because we don't own the land. But I can tell you the Herndon Parkway started in the 50s, the planning for that and the buying up the land. And all the things that are going on now, we were able to secure all but about 20% of the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're coming right back to you, Sheila, just to give you a heads up. First question on the Q&As that have come in, and I'm going to pronounce people's names as best as I can, so forgive me if I get it wrong. This question is from Carrie Stadalis. What are the largest challenges that you think Herndon will face in the next few years? Sheila.
Thank you for that question. Sad to say, a lot of things that I would really like to be working on and things that I was all excited about in January are not going to be the same things that need to be worked on because of the whole state of reality now. So we are going to have to relook how we do things. Parking is a big issue in Herndon. I know a lot of the restaurants really want to stay outdoors in the streets and the parking places. And while if you're over where the Mom's Market is, you have an owner of that facility that can make those decisions. Whereas in the town of Herndon, we have a lot of businesses that are sharing the parking. So every time we make a decision, there will be consequences to someone. So for the restaurants, they can't all go, stay in all the parking spaces out there, but we do need to work out some type of situation where we can do that. We also know that we can work faster than we had worked in the past, but sometimes it's not just up to the town of Herndon to make decisions. When the COVID hit, we were so fortunate that the ABC board, Alcohol Beverage Control, they stepped up because the town couldn't just let people drink in the streets. I don't know why, but we can't. You can ask Jimmy about that. Whenever we've done the Mosby's reenactment, he's always making sure you can shoot guns in the street today, but don't take your alcohol out there. So we do have to jump through hoops and go through state laws as well. And our staff has just been on top of it, especially with a lot of the things that went through community development, getting drop boxes to drop things so that the construction could keep going in town and people didn't have to have any physical contact. So thank you. I think my time is up.
Thank you. And to Roland, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So that is a great question because that's what we're going to have to rethink. I think for an economic standpoint, we're at some really big crossroads, and the pandemic of COVID-19 has highlighted some of them and maybe escalated and advanced them more than they would have naturally before that. So for example, coincidentally, like 2 days ago was, Prime Day for Amazon. Well, the internet's usually slow on those 2 days because everybody's shopping on those 2 days. But that's an example of how our retail purchasing has changed. The model has changed. I think we all agree that the malls are predominantly just a slow pulse, and at some point they may die. We want to save our small businesses, and we're a single family community. And we work best and incubate and are symbiotic with our small businesses. And those, have an opportunity to thrive if we change our large retail model to online. So that's going to be different. The other one is going to be the telework. So after, we slowly start to go back to normal and others as it's healthy and safe. What we don't know is for, many of the commercial entities that we have and office buildings that we have, how many of them will go back, at 100% of what they were. They may go to 30 or 40. And so with less office space occupied, less people having lunch in the morning, we're going to have an impact to our businesses. So we have like a 60-40 revenue, 60% from residential and 40 from our commercial. What will that 40 be? And so we don't know how much office space may reduce. We don't know how retail is going to change. So our long-term projections are going to have to come up with a total new model and concept of how that may look over time. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you. Sheila, 1 minute follow-up.
Thank you. The challenges are huge, and we don't even know when we're all going to be back out there full time. And we are strongly encouraging everyone to get their flu shots because we don't want to have the flu on top of the pandemic really hampering people and their ability to get out and creating a much worse situation. The situation with people losing their homes because they can't pay their mortgage, or losing the place that they're living because they can't pay their rent. Businesses possibly not being able to pay their rent. But then if you're the small business owner that owns the business and you're not collecting the rent, you can't pay your mortgage either. I'm one of those people in that boat, that I need to collect my rent so that I can make the mortgage for the commercial property that I own. And we will continue to work on this. We don't have all the answers, but we're looking hard. And I think the staff has been excellent to stay on top of this. And we may not be able to please everybody, but you never can. But I think many of our restaurants are pretty happy with how we've moved forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland, 1 minute follow-up.
Yeah, so I think we kind of agree in this area, in recovery and what we're going to have to do. Sadly, though, as you know, most of our restaurants are concentrated, co-located with office space. So when you get over to, Safeway side of town, the old Kmart Plaza, the Moms and others, then those office shops are connected. The small little businesses and restaurants there are connected to the office space that's on that side of town. And then the same thing on Worldgate, you see a high concentration of fast food, small restaurants that supplement those office spaces. So they've been hugely impacted from it. Downtown did really good in that they were kind of a walking to type restaurant area and had customers. And then the fact the trail and now more people are walking, they've actually, to somewhat, a few of them have thrived in that area. But sadly, though, the ones out near the office complexes, we're losing them. We're going to continue to lose some more. So it is going to change that dynamic. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland, next question's coming back to you, and this one's from Troy Miller. How do you plan on keeping a small town feeling with a master plan that appears to allow for increased density, both commercial and residential, along the Eldon Street corridor? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is the area where, again, I disagree somewhat with the models that, are potentially there, because I don't think there's a need to go to high density in some of those areas, because we have to go to the core value of why did we pick Herndon to live here? And, when you go and you talk to people, it was the charm, it was the things just like he's talking about. And I agree with that. The question then is, are we copying, staff copying Fairfax type models, and why are we going to those densities? Is it for a revenue generator, or is it for the long-term health of Herndon? And so many of us, who've had our kids go through schools and there's portable buildings and our parks are crowded and others, then why would we go to a higher density in some of those areas? And so then we have the traffic issues in the Eldon corridor, with mostly being Loudoun County traveling through that we've got to push and do. We have a wonderful parkway system. And again, just like Sheila said, some of the people a long time ago to put a parkway in is amazing. And it's a great asset for us to use. We've just got to make Loudoun County drivers use it so that we can recover Eldon Street, as a community resource and not overcrowd our side streets because we're flooding with that. So I'm not pro high density in those areas. So I do disagree with that model, just in the context of I don't see the purpose of it. We want some growth, but it has to add value. But we shouldn't do it just for a revenue stream. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sheila, 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is a great question. And having been through several of the downtown charrettes and meetings where I know in the 90s, the downtown development was absolutely huge. I can't remember how many stories it was, but it was much, much larger than what we're looking at today. And so we had several different models come and go over the years, and they didn't go through, primarily because the citizens in town wanted things on a smaller scale. With that in mind, you also have to realize that if a developer comes in, it has to be something that they can do to make it worth their while. And over the many years I've been here, I moved here in '90, and no one wanted to develop those individual properties one at a time. So the town did buy the building that Art Space sits in years ago. And they bought it specifically because they wanted to put an art center there. I know I've been to meeting after meeting about wanting to have structured parking because whatever got developed downtown, you had to have some type of structured parking to make sure you were efficient in parking vehicles instead of the way we have it now, where we have a downtown, which is a lot of parking, but there's not a lot of places to go. And if you talk to the businesses, they are begging to have more people right there in the downtown. They have for years, specifically the restaurants, because they know that will make them thrive. So I think this is the good balance. We've gotten it as small as we can. There's not a lot of money to be made. And we could, throw the towel in and start over, but I don't think that's going to be a wise thing to do. And I totally support it, but keeping the town of Herndon home feel as well.
Thank you very much. Roland, 1 minute follow-up.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, I've attended meetings from 10 years ago and others on downtown development, and many of the models that that I appreciated most had 20-foot setbacks and green and wide sidewalks and green space and 2 stories, facing the main streets, and then letting it grow and higher as it went in the rear areas of it. What we don't know, on the outside, and again, like I said, I think this is a transparency thing, and part of it I understand is contractual and others, but what we don't know is the concept of the art center being built by the contractor in it, then, they would want more for whatever we wanted. And so I'm not sure, and we don't ever see exactly the scale that it's going to be. And I feel a lot of people are concerned about that. And so it's because of the lack of transparency on it. We all looked years ago at models, but we don't see the scale of models now. And so that density in that area, the question is, what are the impacts to traffic and others? I'm sure some businesses would like to have that. The question is that the best benefit for the overall town? And then the traffic in that corridor, which, the question was really there. And then the question about the charm and the others. And so the scale of it, reduces the walkability of it and others. And so I think there's real questions to be had about it, but I think we do all agree that we want to see development there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sheila, 1 minute follow-up.
Thank you. I think we've hashed this out quite a bit over the years. The concept that we now have is going to have a lot of open space in the downtown. And with what's going on now with the COVID, there's going to be a lot of places to expand outdoor seating and so forth, simply because we are going to have a lot of walking areas down there. Our streetscape, we've been working on that for many, many years, and it's really starting to look great. How many of you were around when Jimmy's had a maybe 3 foot wide sidewalk that you had to practically hold onto the building so that you weren't on Eldon Street? And now you actually have some nice walkability there. And that's part of what makes Herndon awesome, is to be able to walk. The WNOD Trail, we have so many people come here just for that. And Friday Night Live, we have a huge number of people that show up in our downtown just to go to Friday Night Live, and we're surviving it. And it's making our town thrive, as well as the restaurants and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, this question's coming back to you. We have answered all the Q&As that we have gotten from the folks here. There were a handful of questions that the town council candidates were responding to that we thought were particularly relevant. So we're going to recycle a few to be good people in recycling here. We'll throw these out in your direction. So Sheila, from Zohab, he or she asked, currently we have dual taxation of county and town, and even though there are so many things that town cover itself, our tax rate for county is the same as the rest of the county. You both probably saw some of this discussion on Facebook, as I did.
Okay.
What are you going to do to reduce the tax burden on town residents without reducing the service? And how will you bring tax dollars from the county to the town? So to you, Sheila, 2 minutes.
That's a great question. And talk about recycling, just look over my shoulder. These signs are at least 10 years old. I've recycled. So I appreciate that, Greg. I've been hearing this for years. People think that they're being double taxed and they're not getting their money's worth. But one of the things you might want to consider, when I lived in Fairfax County for about 2 years when I first lived in Virginia, I'm paying the taxes, but I also had to pay to have my trash picked up because that wasn't included. There's just a lot of things. I can tell you, I want my snow plowed in my cul-de-sac when it snows, especially Snowmageddon. It might have taken them a little bit longer because that was like 40 some odd inches. And it was kind of being fun, stuck at home for a few days. But by the fourth day when they showed up, I was glad to be able to get out. Even though I could not leave the town of Herndon, I was glad that I was able to at least get out. So we still use the schools in the county. We still get the fire service from the county. And you want to talk about bringing dollars in? Fairfax County did a bond. And that's why we have that fire department. When I was on council, previous council would not discuss putting in the new fire department. We moved forward. We got the county to put it on the bond. That was millions of dollars. And we needed that because we had the oldest fire department with the most out-of-date equipment. You couldn't even have women there because it was so small they didn't have enough quarters for everyone. We've got lady firefighters in there. Thank goodness. And all the latest equipment so that if anybody needs something in Herndon, you're going to have access to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so now that, with the pandemic and others, with our revenue, the sequestration of, $5.5 million out of the current budget that's there now, we're definitely going to have to make some hard decisions. Everything has to be on the table in order to see what that is. So just, like Sheila said, the fire department, great job. It's Fairfax County. We pay the taxes on it. Well, Fairfax County police are the same way. So, instead of trying to take on every function, at the independent law enforcement level, maybe we can put more patrolmen out, and maybe then we can let major crimes be covered by Fairfax County if we need to, attrition out personnel that way. We've got to potentially look at the services that we do. We may have to look at a hybrid model to contract, potentially some of those to take the risk factors off. We're not having to maintain the equipment, cradle to grave employees. We've got to look at hard decisions, and those aren't fun decisions, and they aren't things that we want to do. We appreciate every single public servant. I worked 20 years in local government. I appreciate what they do. But at the same time, the people, the low income, the elderly and others, the taxation impacts them as well too. And we have to put everything on the table to look at the most productive and efficient ways that we can do it in order to come out of this. And then after we come out of this, we've got to learn to run leaner so that we do have a reserve when something like this comes up. So again, anything can be on the table. We do have wonderful services. We want to keep as many as we can, but you cannot stay at the same level of service and reduce without reducing overhead cost, and our personnel are a large part of that.
Thank you. Sheila, 1 minute to follow up.
Thank you. It's a hard question, and you got to remember, penny wise and pound foolish is not where we want to be. And over the years, even prior to my being on council, we've had councils that talked about eliminating DPW, getting rid of all the equipment. But if you go look at, all you need to do is go to Republic or AAA and look at how much you're going to pay for trash. Right now, the town is able to pick up your trash and your recycling for $300 and something a year. But if you go to one of those others, you're going to be paying over $600. So is the town going to do that? We're going to need to tax you for it. If not, then I don't think people are going to be too happy that they're paying twice the money. Also, then we don't have staff to pick up the snow. So there are a lot of things that we have in Herndon that people do like, and I, for one, really enjoy those services, and I would like to see those core things. And remember, the majority of our funding goes to staffing. And I think we're very efficient with the staffing and the level of expertise and professionalism that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Roland gets a follow-up if my mind is still working. 1 minute for follow-up.
Thank you. Well, that's it. But we're, like I said, we're in a financial impact now where we're, it has to be something that we discuss. And if we do the research on it, share it with the public, let them see what it is, transparent about those numbers and what they are, and the contract models are out there, then that's what we want to do, and let them give us the guidance on it. In COVID, just like Sheila said, we've got people that can't pay their rent, they can't pay mortgages. It's tough for everyone, and we have to be just as responsible with their money and look at everything, research that. I'm not coming in trying to take any of this away, but we definitely have to manage it in the most efficient way and be good stewards of their money. It's not ours. If that makes cuts, we're going to have to make cuts. And like I said, it's not something anybody enjoys thinking about. But as a manager, it's something you have to think, be willing to discuss. Thank you.
Okay. Recycling a few more questions. This one is from Walter Shorter, and I believe it goes to Roland this time to start. What is your stance on the issues with the historic homes and expense to comply with town regulations?
We're good? Okay.
2 minutes.
Yep, absolutely. And this has been a key issue. So for Hunters Creek, we sit right across from Drainsville to the historic district. And so many issues that have impacted our area of town have impacted theirs. So being HOA president, vice president, being on the board, being, like I said, we're a 1970s model neighborhood as well. But with those neighbors, some of the road issues and others, we've been actively involved with some of the people in the historic district. I've attended many meetings reference to that and others. What I have not, thought that was fair to those people is we talk about, green space, we talk about environment, and those people don't have the ability to do the efficiencies that they need to make their homes efficient and environmentally the best that they can. And we're asking them to take on these historical homes that are amazing and love them and bring them back and recycle them and keep them, in the grandeur that they once were. And I think it was Mr. Downer once said at one of the meetings I was at, where these people were, being forced to do hundreds of thousands of dollars of materials that were not, going to be energy efficient because they had to look just like they did 100 years ago. And there's very few vendors that can do it. And the lack of standardization, the lack of a list of materials that they can use, they're already approved, and standardization, I've gone down there time and time again, and it really seemed to be, it mattered who went down there, when they went down there, who was on the historic board. And forever, the books had not been redone. And until the town got caught up in it when they were doing the new stuff, well, then all of a sudden the books got rewritten. So we've got to be fair to those people so that they know what they're getting into. And I wish they knew that from disclosure to beginning, but we've got to help those people as best we can to make those homes energy efficient and cost effective so that they'll maintain them. So my heart does go out to them. And I think it's that lack of being in an HOA and working with people on materials. We've just got to standardize it and make it affordable for them and not force them to have to do these obscure products that are very few vendors and too expensive for them. So again, it's a good topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So yes, this has been talked about for years. Many years ago, my brother that happens to be an architect hated historic districts and referred them to the hysterical districts. Now he's had some kind of revelation. He's born again, and now he contacted me about 10 or 15 years ago and is on a mission down in Alabama to save the historic buildings there. The value of having these is just part of our stock in Herndon, and as you look around, it really does give us a very different feel. And I've often heard people exaggerate greatly that they were going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for roofs to go on their houses. However, I also have known numerous individuals that really love their historic home, and none of them ever spent that much money on a roof. and they had either the standing seam or the single. There are people all over the country that are going to metal roofs because they literally last longer. I know my family in Alabama, several individuals replaced their asphalt roof with a metal standing seam because they weren't going to have to replace it again, and they felt it was more energy efficient than the asphalt shingle. So we can find all these arguments both ways, but one of the problems, I think the biggest, is legally we cannot make the realtors tell people, and if they're not willing to tell people they're buying in the historic district, I've talked about getting things passed in Richmond, and because Richmond, the delegates and senators get bombarded with the real estate agents and the realty lobby, and they won't let them require them to disclose that when they sell the houses. And I think that's wrong too. Excuse me. That was my timer.
Roland, 1 minute.
Yeah, so like I said, I think the standardization of it, having lists of materials that, you know, they've already looked at to support those owners. And like I said, Mr. Downer once had the poor neighbors across from Drainsville from us, a young couple, were trying to replace the windows. And they just were constantly, you know, they'd constantly tried to get this done. And so I happened to be at the meeting when they did, and their contractor put the windows at the back of the council room. And so the point of it was, can you tell the difference between these? Because they were trying to go to a vinyl or aluminum or something. And again, they were being restricted, had to be wood and a certain kind of glass to look identical historical. Well, the modern material would meet that requirement. And as Mr. Downer, like I said, one of our pioneers in some of that stuff, he said, look, I've got a 20-foot test, 25-foot test, you know, kind of paraphrasing. And he said, if I can't tell the difference in the material at that distance, then it doesn't matter what the material is. And I agree with him 100%. And so materials that when they come in, we should be giving them a list, not forcing them to go out, give it back to us, tell us if it's good. Then they've told us not good, go back, find another vendor. We need to be helping these people. They're saving a part of our history here. And again, the legacy towns, Vienna's, Fall Church, the Herndon, this is what people come to here for. And so I just want to help those people as much as we can to save that, because, you know, they're giving a lot of love and attention to those houses. And we appreciate it when we drive by, but we don't need to hassle them, you know, all the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Sheila, 1 minute follow-up.
Okay, thank you very much. When I first got on the council in 2010, we got the ball rolling on that. And you have to accumulate the money so that we can go in and change all the standards. And it's taken years. It is frustrating that municipalities work very slow, but all we've got to do is look to how long it's taking us to get the silver line. And, you know, some things are just out of our control. But we do have to have public hearings. You have people that are very passionate about keeping the historic homes. You have some people passionate that they would rather tear them down and build a new home. So we've just got to decide what we want to do in Herndon, because once we tear all these homes down, they will be gone. And we're going to lose part of that feel that many of us like about the diversity of housing stock here in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question on the board here, and this one goes to Sheila from Alexa Cummins. How do you view the role of transparency in data in the future of Herndon? What concrete steps would you take to get that vision accomplished?
Number one is we need to get people to show up at meetings. We are one of the most transparent municipalities around. I constantly, from the dais, ask people, if you ever want to hear about how things are, give me a call. If your community wants me coming over, I'll come over and talk to a group. If you're having problems locating things, I can help you find them. If you've got a question, let me know. And what I usually do with constituents that are interested in learning more about something that they don't think is transparent, I'll actually cut and paste things from the website so that when they click onto that link, they can see exactly where they can find those things. Sometimes they make decisions at other meetings, not necessarily town council meetings, but maybe at the planning commission level. And so they're looking for something and they're not sure where to go look for it. But with the new program that we put in just in the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, where we have the videos online, you can search that a little easier than what we could do in the past. So again, if anyone's interested, please let me know. I want to help you find things, because other than this contract that we've been working on with Comstock, because we are in negotiations, just like you don't want to tell somebody what you're offering on the house that you want because you don't want someone to outbid you by, you know, a few $100s, then we've been having to slowly work through these things. And I know that right now Comstock is working with the Fairfax County Fire Marshal on getting some things moved forward, which have to be done before the final papers are signed on that. But please give me a call. I'm always available.
Thank you. Roland, 2 minutes.
Thank you. And so I've had, you know, when I go around and talk to people, they've asked me that. So I see a lot of deals about transparency, and some of the people, you know, like Sheila said, some people are very active and they know where to go and find things. Again, we have to kind of go back to that we've lost so many local newspapers and we don't, you know, we relied on that type of communication for so long. And on social media, we do see a lot of things, but we're so bombarded with other things. Sometimes we just lose sight of the local issues. What we can do, and I'm very crucial on this, is, you know, is being transparent in things, is that in addition, you know, because I'd always objected for a long time that work sessions were not in the main, you know, chamber, that they weren't televised. Obviously, I understand the legal requirements. You know, we can go into private sessions and others, but it is important for them to see. And I'll tell you why, because if I don't know what was discussed in the work session, when I hear that it's coming up, I may go and ask a question. Had I already known that they addressed it in a work session, then I would understand how they got to that point. And then I'd be like, okay, I understand how you did it. When you don't hear that kind of information, for many years, that was in a side room and it was anything out of it. You didn't feel welcoming to go in there. It was kind of a chilling effect. Then I think many people felt turned off and didn't feel comfortable attending. It wasn't they couldn't. It wasn't that they weren't welcome. But it did kind of have a chilling effect to people. So keeping everything transparent, you know, having it in there, recording them, making the videos available to them, easy accessible. You know, we have concerns about some of the reporting of the police department, make sure they're giving all the data they can. We have to be transparent because we are the stewards of their deal. So I understand that some of the Comstock stuff, like is, you know, it may be, but we're not negotiating in an open market with other companies. It's just with this one. They have the deal. But again, we just don't see anything. And so people don't know if that's intentional, not intentional, but it makes people concerned.
Thank you. Sheila, 1 minute follow-up. And you're on mute, please.
Sorry about that.
Start your time now, no problem.
Thank you. Still, the transparency is there. I guess I'm just like really nosy, because for many years I would go to the work sessions, and I was really amazed at some of the things that I heard in those work sessions. But I would tell other people, if you really want to know, come on to the work session, and you can get in there. There have been times when we knew a lot more people might show up, and we make sure there's chairs, or maybe we did move to the other room for a moment. But it really is important that you sit down and be able to work around the table and look each other in the eye and have discussions with fellow council members to get things done in a work session. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've lost my place again. Roland, is it 1 minute to you, or are we moving on?
I think it is, but I'll take this real quick. So yes, and so now we can get some audio of that, so I appreciate that. It is important. That work session is vital, but we have to understand that, you know, we're a two-income society. We're traveling in transportation. We're trapped in traffic for 2 hours after work. I'm sorry, but I've got to go home and cook for the kids. I can't go down and sit in a council session as much as I might like to, let's say. I'm very diligent about watching all of them, listening to all of them, every one of them. myself, but that's how we consume information. And so we do, and HGTV does an amazing job, and I appreciate all they do. And we just need to make it all visible for everyone to see and share on social media and have it available. We can't force you to watch it, but it needs to be available to you. And so many minutes from, past times and past councils, it was Roland Taylor spoke, or, you couldn't tell what was going on, whether it was intentional or not. But, some people are suspicious of these things. So we just need to have the video there of everything we're doing and just be forthcoming with it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this will be, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to do 2 minutes of closing. So this last question, and it goes to Roland, is from Kathleen Stack. I want to know which of the candidates is working on a plan to provide more affordable housing in the town. So Roland, 2 minutes on affordable housing.
Thank you. So this comes up quite often, and my counter question always is, what is affordable housing for Fairfax County? And that's, where the discussion, kind of gets derailed. What's good about as I refer to them, legacy communities in Fairfax County, Herndon, Falls Church and Vienna, and I refer to them that way because they're concentrated older communities. When you go outside of those communities, most of the developments you see are all new and modern. And so their price points are all at a very high level because they came in and they're all unisys because they were all built at the same time and the price points are the same. Where the legacy towns, you're going to see some older homes, you're going to see historic homes, you're going to see some smaller type townhouses, you're going to see larger townhouses, single family homes, joined and separate. And we have a very diverse inventory in Herndon. So again, that's important because then it allows younger families of various incomes to be able to come in and purchase a home. And so that's important for us to do. And I think there's also a bubble of people holding on to houses right now and renting them because they're waiting for the big, move on the metro coming, and their house is going to go up astronomical. And so they retired, left the area because they can't afford to, and they're holding them. So we have more rentals, I think, than we probably ever have. And I'll defer to Sheila, for years in that profession, that I think that's true. And so when we finally get those sold, we're going to have homeowners again with ownership. And so that might reduce some parking, that may change some things. So the metro has had an impact on our housing as far as people holding homes, more rentals. But I do think we have a diverse deal on that. Anytime we can find an opportunity, they have a new opportunity with the hotel that may be converted, we only look for those. Absolutely look for workforce housing in there. But I think comparative to some of our neighbors in the county, we have a diverse inventory of properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Great question, Katie. And anyone, including Katie, that would like to have a copy of the inventory that our staff put together, we've got it. I can send you a copy of it. I just have it because I don't want you to have to hunt and peck for it on the internet, but it was presented at a meeting, so it's out there public, but I know what it's called. We do have a very nice, diverse stock, but several years ago, we wanted to start the discussion because there are some properties in town that currently have people that are not workforce, but they are truly the affordable, and maybe there's a sliding scale for those individuals. And those are the folks that work at our CVS and Walgreens and the grocery store. And if they had to pay current high market brand new places, where would we find those people to work in those jobs? So we were so concerned about that, we started looking at what are we going to do if someone buys that? We need to have incentives so that if someone comes in, they buy it, and then they've got a buy right to just develop it at that density. Then what can we do to incentivize that they have some affordable homes in there and also workforce homes? But we do have workforce homes over on Center Street. There was a place that needed to be torn down, and they are now rental townhomes. They're right across from Lifestyle. When my son graduated from college in 2008, fortunately we get along, so he decided to stay here, and I said, you have to save $1,000 a month so you will have money for a down payment, because he wanted to buy. He was a finance major. He didn't want to pay rent. And he had a hard time finding. So I'm very aware of how difficult it is if you don't have parents that can hand you the money to go put the down payment down, like my kids. I mean, I did good. They graduated without a college bill. That's all mom can do. Widow mom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 minute for follow-up.
No, so, and again, I think we 100% agree on this. And so a slidable scale workforce housing is something that we really need to focus on. And like I said, we can do some incentives and some others. I think this is a great opportunity potentially, as it goes through with this, the Marriott suites that are at the corner across from Duck Donuts and Eldon Street and the Parkway. They potentially may, turn this into affordable housing, and they're willing to have a large percentage of that. If that continues, that'll be a great opportunity. But again, I think that our diverse inventory, because of our age and our location, and then we're symbiotic to Sterling and some other areas that, older and have some lower price housing. I think in our geographical area, we have benefits that some other parts of the county don't have. Now we want to maintain that and not replace every little old house with a McMansion. We need to keep those type of houses available for people for that reason. So we want to make the streets and sidewalks good for those areas and keep them viable. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sheila, 1 minute follow-up. Final word on final question.
Thank you. And we're talking about affordable housing. One thing I want everyone to keep in mind, I moved here in 1990. My oldest, first and only child at that time was at Hutchison Elementary School. And then 8 years apart, my next son started Hutchison when the other one was off in middle school. And I can tell you, Hutchison and Herndon Elementary have a huge number of free and reduced lunches. So we also want to keep in mind that we've got to have a balance here. It can't be all rich people and it can't be all low socioeconomic, or it's not going to be healthy for the town. And when we lose the hotel, we're going to lose a lot of revenue because the hotel has a hotel tax, and going to residential, that's going to be a loss, but it's not going to go back to a hotel. So this was going to be the best. So I think as a council, we need to look for the opportunities that we have out there and take advantage. But we've always got to have some lower priced housing for those people that are doing a lot of the service jobs that can't afford to live in a townhouse or a single family home.
Thank you. All right, that brings to a close our question and answer session. We're going to do 2 minutes for closing statements. I think, Sheila, because you opened with opening statements, we will let Roland open with closing statements. So 2 minutes to Roland, closing statement.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Greg, so much, and Stevan for giving us this opportunity, and for those people that are watching. I appreciate your time and those that take the time to look at this. Like I said, the fundamental difference is, like I said, I'm focused on quality of life issues and some of the others. I think, most everybody that is. I'm offering my services as mayor. I've worked as a public servant, for over 20 years. I've worked in business, going on 18 years. We've raised 4 kids here. We participated in the town. We love the town. We're offering my services to the town. And like I said, when the mayor announced that they were not running, so then I took that opportunity, and that's why I'm going out there. I'm not running against my opponent. I'm running for the office. I wish everybody well on it. I'll work with anybody. Like I said, I didn't ask or seek any parties or endorsements. I'm just going door to door and talking to people. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I appreciate those that have been standing out in 2 and 3 hour lines voting. We just left the polls today, and that's the type of commitment people are doing. I appreciate it. So just look for the differences, and I'm just offering my service, and I would appreciate people giving me an opportunity, regardless of any parties or any endorsements, to look at my public service and see if you think that that's in line with what you're considering about Herndon and our quality of life. So thank you.
Thank you. And Sheila, once again, final word.
Thank Thank you very much. So again, I moved here in 1990 with my late husband and 5-year-old son. I had a second child 2 years later, and 4 years after we moved here, I lost my husband. I stayed here even though my family wanted me to pack up and move back to Alabama. I knew that this is where I wanted to be. We had made this our home, and it became our home. We were embraced by the community when we lost the kid's dad, and I have been volunteering ever since. I was volunteering before I lost him, working on land use issues, and continued to do so by volunteering for the festival when I wasn't even in any organization. I would go help with different things like Runnymede Park cleanups and so forth. And then I got involved and have served on numerous boards in the community, like Friends of Runnymede Park, Council for the Arts. I was involved with the garden tour for years, where individuals in the community get together and we go stand out there and hang out in the yards while all the community comes by, the home tour. And then I started getting involved in land use issues once the kids got older. Dulles Toll Road Task Force, I was on the Hunter Mill Task Force. These are big land use projects that they do impact us because we're talking about the toll road and bringing the Silver Line out. So I feel like I have a lot of experience to be able to work on these things. I understand how communities work in town and where we fit in with the county. And I really love this town and I'm willing to work on it. Anybody wants to talk to me about anything, you can't find stuff, I'm willing to come over and talk to you. My kids are grown now and I got tons of time. And I was a sports booster mom. So I'm telling you, I got time compared to what I had when I was the sports booster mom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I got a message from Stevan saying that I can close this out. So thank you both for participating. I hope everybody got their questions answered today, and go out and vote. Thank you, everybody.